Share it. You can do it.
Done. We're recording.
Wonderful.
All right. Thank you so much. And welcome to today's edition of our community meeting. Let me share my screen, but the agenda is actually also attached to the meeting invite. So if you haven't seen that, just feel free to open and also contribute to the Google Doc here. All right, as we have a more or less packed agenda, so I would just actually kick it off so we can get started. If anything has any other questions or anything else to add to the agenda, just feel free to put it in the Google Doc or just speak up. We're not too many people, so I also believe we can do that interactively. Should we do a quick round of introductions around the group? Of course, I've seen like some new people, some new names. So I'm Jörg. I actually used to kickstart the KUDO project, and now I'm also working on Kubernetes-related infrastructure.
All right, I'm Fabi. I'm working on KUDO as well, and yeah, welcome everyone.
I'm Tom Runyon, Kubernetes consulting, helping develop KUDO, work with US courts for some OpenShift deployments as well.
I'm Jared. I'm a project owner at Mesosphere for KUDO and developer on KUDO as well.
Hey, Denis Jano, so I'm working at Mesosphere and starting to play a little bit with KUDO a few days ago with this Redis stuff.
Hmm? Yeah, that looked really cool what you posted on Slack. Thanks for doing that.
A pleasure.
Hi, I'm Gaston. I'm actually a Mesos committer, and I've been at Mesosphere for a while, but I'm starting to play with Kubernetes and KUDO, so that's why I'm here to learn.
We can help. I write the docs for KUDO sometimes.
I review the docs for KUDO. That should have been my introduction if you had gone first. All right, who do we have left? Kai.
Hi, I'm Kai. I'm a Mesosphere employee. I work on the DCOS SDK, and I'm looking forward to working up with KUDO.
All right. I believe Ravi is missing, but then we got him.
Ravi, it's Ravi. I work on partnerships at Mesosphere, and I keep an eye on what's going on with KUDO.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much. And then let's actually dive into the meeting. So the first thing I would just like to briefly discuss is kind of like community support. So over the past days, there have always been people coming up on Slack asking questions, which is actually great because we see more and more interaction there. It's just kind of, I always try to like briefly answer in between meetings. Maybe we just need to like think, or if all of us are kind of aware and try to answer questions, that's probably also working. But I feel it's kind of like good if we describe a more procedure-like stuff also in the documentation. So Toby, that's something you could contribute to the docs. As said, I'm happy to review. So where do we mostly want to focus kind of like support or community requests? Mailing lists, Slack. Are we going to look at Stack Overflow? Are we creating like a Stack Overflow tag? What's your opinion around that? No one?
I mean, my thoughts so far is so Slack's been working well right now. We have the mailing list, which is sort of a at the moment DOA, and I think we could rewrite it. I don't know. I want to make sure that everyone working on the project is as enabled to work on it as possible. So Slack is working for the moment, and until we grow out of it, I think we grow to like mailing list and then grow to Stack Overflow, like in that order. As long as we're pushing, maybe my direction, on this would be like that I would take is what happens when someone opens up a GitHub issue on how to use KUDO. Right, like where do we direct them to first? And
That's a good point. I kind of missed GitHub. Yes.
Like maybe it should flow from like, okay, if you ask in GitHub, it moves into Slack, and then, or we take the Kubernetes and Go community perspectives, and we spin up a discourse instance and have discuss.kudo.dev. That's an incredibly popular option as well.
So my biggest concern with Slack is that it's like really hard to search later on. So if questions come up over and over again, it's kind of like almost impossible to find them on Slack.
That's fair.
That's my only concern with Slack. I believe like right now it's probably working. Just as we grow, I feel it's going to get really hard and become a little repetitive.
I would lean to, and I wouldn't mind working to stand up a discourse instance. I like discourse a lot. I don't know if anyone's using Discuss on Kubernetes or Go right now, but it works well. The mailing list is great, but the discourse allows us to tag, and there's the ability to moderate that as well.
Awesome. Yeah, I kind of like that idea. And I mean, right now it's probably going to be a mix of Slack then and Discourse, but it's just kind of, if we direct people to that, I believe we actually built up a powerful knowledge base as well.
Okay. I'll own that, and I'll have a demo for that next week, and we can move that advanced in docs. I'll do a cap and I'll deploy it through the week.
Cool. As said, happy to review.
Okay.
The next item is that about meetups. So I would currently try to organize 2 meetups in Hamburg and Berlin, and probably around the time when Jared, Gaston, and others, I guess many of you are actually going to be in Hamburg for the Mesosphere Engineering Week. So I would actually try to set up meetups around that. So that's something I would own. Any feedback? So if you have like a talk proposal, just talk to me, and I would actually try to set that up. I already pinged Ferdy for the Hamburg office and just looking for a location in Berlin. Does that make sense? Is that something we should do, or any other feedback on this item?
Yeah, just on my side, I think that if you get like some content to present KUDO in a meetup, perhaps I can also try to submit in Paris Kubernetes or Madrid Kubernetes. Whenever I travel, I can probably submit if you have some material ready. I could probably do that.
Yeah, that would be great.
We discussed with Toby as well, because probably Toby will come not too far, like in a few months, so he could probably cover it. But just to make sure we are not dependent on that, because to get a slot is not as easy. So if you also have some material, I can probably go through it myself.
Yeah, sure. I actually believe we should be able, like beginning of next week. I hope we could just give you an abstract you can submit, which is probably what's needed most. I actually have like some conference abstracts. Just you can ping me. Actually, I'm a single user guest even in the Mesosphere Slack. So just ping me and I can share one of those abstracts you can submit there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that works. Thanks.
I just cannot ping random people, so I have to be pinged and then I can reply. That's the only challenge there. But yeah, awesome. And otherwise,
Jarvis was working on content, so we should check in with him. He was going to put it.
Okay. Cool. All right. So can someone just follow up with him and just let him know as well?
Yeah, I'll own that.
Cool. Thank you so much. And just let him know about those meetups there as well. Thank you. I think that goes in the next item, Jared, by the way. You're in the discourse item about the Matt Jarvis comment.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
All right. Update on open caps. Dynamic-crds. Jared.
Yeah. Let me move this, and then I will open the HackMD document. Tom and
do you want to share?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll stop.
So let me. Okay. So we shared this a little bit last week. We've been making additions to it. We're starting to get into a place where the actual proposal is feeling a little bit more stable as we move stuff up from the scratch area into the definition. So I think my update's not going to take very long. We want to get everyone's eyes on this over the next week. And for those who are new or not aware, this is effectively the type system for KUDO in defining frameworks and defining the plans, tasks, and all the behavior around frameworks. So we want to get as many people looking at this in the next week as possible. It's an open HackMD document. Please come in and comment. It's open for people to write on. We've already got comments in here. The main areas that are considered more stable are dynamic CRDs through framework definition. And then we have a scratch area that Tom and I have been pairing on, and we want more ideas on here. There's everything here from shadow to parameters to custom event handling. And then you can look at off the beaten path, but don't worry about that right now. This is more a conversation around how do we handle events inside of KUDO rather than anything else. But so there's not much update as far as getting this merged in. Once this is in a good place, we will move this into the proposal section and open a PR against the dynamic CRDs KEP, which I think is KEP 3, and move KEP 3 to implementable, and we will start implementing. And this is the biggest API change to KUDO from a public API perspective for both framework developers and framework users. So if we're missing anything, we need to know it before we commit to a public API here. And so that is the only thing I would say is if you have 15, 20 minutes a day to look at this and respond to, add feedback and respond to our responses to that feedback, that is going to be immensely helpful. It's going to make an immensely better product. So please, over the next week, I want to be able to say next Thursday, we've moved this to implementable. Tom, do you feel comfortable with that timeline?
Seems aggressive.
Okay. Within two meetings, I want to be able to move this to implementable.
So by next week,
even if it's a partial implementable, I want to have a PR open with a proposal.
Yeah, I think by next week I'd like to have, because I was busy this past week, an actual framework defined in the proposed CRDs that we have.
Okay.
And just try to see what it would look like, and maybe then you can do the Redis one as someone who's not intimately involved in what it looks like. That might be an interesting exercise from someone else who's actually built a framework, and then actually present those objects next week and what it would look like.
Would it make sense to, I don't know, our mailing list isn't too populated, but in general, if we have such big things, I would just love from a process point that we'd send it to that mailing list as well, just to kind of get that also as kind of like the source of discussion. And
I'll do that, yes.
The other thing I was thinking about, does it make sense to just have a brief discussion with the Google folks about this? How they feel, just kind of get an external perspective on it?
I think that'd be a great feedback.
Yeah, we'll send that to them. And
do we want to present it here and get any feedback next week, fix it on Friday, and then schedule something early the following week?
We could basically, what I believe would be the best course of action is explicitly invite them to this meeting, the Google folks, and then just have a discussion here next week. Would that make sense?
I think that makes sense.
Awesome.
I want to, let's, do you all agree with time, like from a time boxing perspective, say that we have something that we can talk about implementable in 2 weeks, even if we're removing features from an API perspective, right? Just so we can make some some implementation movement on this. So that'll give us time to do that, and then we'll at least move the initial cap into that. And then, as we talked about earlier, and we'll talk about a little bit later in the agenda about living caps, we can always add to that. But
cool.
Awesome. That's it for me.
Sounds awesome. All right. Anything else for dynamic CRDs? 3, 2, 1, seemingly not. Okay. Fabi, you're up with a version draft PR.
Yes, I'll make it quick. I'll just put up a PR, a draft PR for version, and I have already a couple of comments. The main intention for that one was that we file right now issues and we say, hey, you need to also let us know what KUDO CLI version you have, but you cannot really let us know. That feature is not supported, so that PR should fix that. And I think that goes in line also with the current activity that we see in the Slack channel where people were asking, and I think it's great for troubleshooting. So in that PR, I'll just discuss the way on how to do that. And I think there are still great ideas in there and some open, but yeah, let's see if we can get this maybe merged tomorrow or so. I know Charity wanted to have a look at one idea about, I put out an idea about using a config map as a sort of registry or whatever that gives you the ability to see the version of the CLI. So that is maybe something interesting to discuss, not maybe here, but also like then in the PR. But beyond than that, I think, in my opinion, how it is right now, we could like merge it so to have something transitional. But ultimately, what we want to replicate is, and that's what Jared also mentioned, the behavior that kubectl does and Helm with actually a client that calls an endpoint to let you know about the version. So I think that's great. Any
feedback?
Fabi, I spent some time chewing on it, and your concerns make sense. I'm still thinking about it. So I'm okay with merging it provisionally, and then I like having a consistent Go and Kubernetes are the best worst thing, right? Like sure, there are better languages and there are better implementations, but these for whatever reason have gained popularity, and I want to match semantics as much as possible for familiarity's sake. So I'd rather choose a worse technical implementation that matches an API that users know, and that would be my only feedback in it. I still need 200 because like it may win out the way where we say like, no, let's do what's right, you know. And so that's my only thinking right now, and where I'm struggling. And so I'd love more opinions beyond just what I typed out, because Fabi's reasoning here is really good, and I want to make sure that sees the light of day before like just choosing what Kubernetes does.
Yeah, that makes sense. And it's right now a draft PR, so we cannot merge it. So like once we feel like ready, we can just make it to a normal PR that is then mergeable as well. So that sounds great whenever we feel comfortable with.
All right. Any other feedback? 3, 2, 1, sold. Thank you very much. Thank you so much for the updates. All right. Open discussion proposal for new caps. I kind of just see what probably would help, and also from like just a Slack feedback, if we can just all spend a little more time on documentation. So for example, I would also just love to update that video and other things, because I mean, we are right now in the stage where we try to attract more people, right? So I feel anything we can invest in the documentation helps new people to easily get started. So also when we have those caps, we should always kind of like plan that documentation is a big part of them. It's kind of like my only thought or my only ask proposal for work over the next months, weeks. All right, then the next point is caps as source of truth. Open call. I think, Jared, you added this.
Yes. So I just wanted to, with a quick discussion in Slack, I wanted to put it in the Zoom and get let everyone have their moment or talk. We talk about it before we say yes or no to this. But it came up in earlier where I proposed that KEPs, because they are living documents, just because it's merged doesn't mean it's done. That for all derivative document, or rather that KEPs are the source of truth for every feature and public API in KUDO. This is not including implementation details. For example, how a function inside of a package works. This is for all public APIs and implementation and features, not implementation details. That KEPs are the definition of that with the proposal and user stories fields, and all documentation, architecture docs, design docs, etc., are derivative from a KEP. Does that sound like a reasonable approach to everyone? Now, this doesn't include like whip stuff, and like I said, this doesn't include like the implementation of a merge sort function inside of a package. This is just what we're actually writing documentation and usage guides around has to be derived from a KEP first, unless it's related to like a whip KEP. Is that a reasonable standard to set? What does everyone think about that?
So that basically means if we, for example, add some API extension, I don't know, if we just add like a version tag to some API, we also kind of need to document that back into the original KEP?
Yes.
What does it mean in terms of we have an original KEP and then we develop like the next iteration with its own KEP?
There's a state called superseded for KEPs.
Okay.
And so the original KEP would move into superseded, I assume, but we haven't defined this, I would assume in the same PR where that KEP moves from provisional to implemented or implementable.
Yeah, I would just see that some of that can actually be compositional, that there's still a lot of stuff from the old one and some, like, I don't know, new area being provided by the old one, then it's probably just like link it from the old one, or?
Yeah, that makes sense. Like, as long as, because I guess we'll have to define what superseded means eventually, but does superseded mean gone entirely, or the future direction means that the new KEP is updated even in, I don't know. So yeah, I agree with that.
Okay, yeah, that works at least for me.
Yeah, I think that for me that sounds like a good compromise as well. One thing I want to touch on, you mentioned in the Slack channel that like the architecture is it's the source of the upstream there, but if it's not in a KEP, it shouldn't be in a code or documentation. So we have basically the heading in the KEP that talks about the features, but not so much in detail. And one derivative of it would be then maybe a design doc or something that talks more about it. And then we have this, what you said, the merge part that maybe suddenly comes up in this document. Would that then violate automatically that it shouldn't be in the documentation or in the code because we were not talking about it in the upstream KEP? Or how do we kind of?
No. I think what I'm trying to gate, I guess, or avoid is design and architecture docs that aren't represented by something.
I think that comes down to what Tom meant with if you're asking for 100% KEP coverage. I think that was a good question.
So.
I'm sorry, I was muted. Go ahead. I don't mean to cut you off.
Whom? Tom.
So we're gonna talk? Maybe no. If not, okay, I'll go. Yeah, I don't know. We'll have to play it by ear. Like the intent behind my statement is more I don't want to generate out design docs, user guides, or architecture docs that are informed by something in the repository, right? That we've all agreed on. Like, but I don't know what that line is, and that's where we all rely on each other to figure out what that line is. So I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I feel that kind of like the cap becomes the specification we're aiming for in both implementation and documentation, testing, etc. Or
yeah, one thing to add there is also I think like the cap with the features kind of like gives you the direction. And so as long as you do something that goes not entirely against the direction and flows against, swims against the flow there, yeah, I think it's covered under that feature mentioning. So that's probably what you in Tino also mentioned, like, hey, we talk about apples in that feature, and suddenly when you look down that feature, you deal with bananas. Hey, wait, we talked the whole time about apples. I think so. That's what I get out of there. So that makes total sense to me. But let's just see while we're doing it, and if we run into any like roadblocks or something, we can still articulate that. I think we shouldn't.
Yeah, I guess what I mean, like from a like, I guess parliamentary procedure level, like is the cap the source of truth? And I think it should be like in an argument of what is the semantic, the cap wins out, right? And if we don't like it, we alter the cap. We don't make changes that aren't represented there. That's more what I'm where my sentiment there.
that's what I would express as it's a specification, kind of
Makes sense.
Yeah. Awesome, cool. No, I like it being the source of truth.
Dito.
And Jörg, for your perspective as well, the what got me thinking about this was the original design document for this, and how there's obviously been changes there. So, do we need to go and take existing KUDO functionality and represent it in caps?
I think that would be a great way also for documentation purposes.
Okay. So, do you all want to spend maybe an hour outside the community meeting together, looking, Tom, Jörg, Fabi, whoever else wants to listen or participate, going through our existing feature set, going through what we have already, and identifying where we're missing caps, and even if we're just streamlining them into their existing implementations, just making sure that they're represented?
Sounds great, yeah.
Tom, go ahead.
Should we wait till after dynamics go in? And the reason being, we're going to do all this, and then we're going to redo all of this.
I'm okay with that. I'm okay with waiting for dynamics. I should have been more clear because there was two passes. Yeah, I'm okay waiting for dynamics. If Jörg and Fabi are.
Good point, yeah.
That's good.
All right. Q&A. Any questions? Any comments?
So this is where I would think that maybe Gaston or Denis have something to say about Redis or like the questions that we had in the Slack. So I think that is a great way. I have a follow-up question to Denis. Denis, do you have so the link that we sent to you how to trigger plans and how to incorporate tasks, was that helpful for you? Was that something that you could incorporate, or you have follow-up questions there?
Yeah, no, I would say that, as I said, I'm really surprised by how easy it is to create, like a deploy plan. I didn't even have documentation. I just tried to kind of copy and paste another plan and just like try to adapt to Redis and then to look at how to add a task and so on. So it's amazingly powerful how fast you can create a package. Okay, it's just a basic package, deploy a Redis cluster and then init the cluster, but I still need to think about how to update by changing the number of nodes or these kind of things. And my goal is not really to do a production ready thing, because it's not even my specialty, Redis. So it was just because I had a customer speaking about Redis, and I thought, okay, let's take that as an example. But it was incredible how fast it is to create a new framework. Now, on the bad side, I would say that it's difficult to find any documentation or to find where the documentation is. I was just asking a question, and then someone gave me the link for how to define that if you want to do an update, then it has to be an update phase, and if you want to do like an upgrade, then you have to create an upgrade phase. But that's not really documented in anywhere. So I think it would be useful to have kind of a getting started where we describe, okay, you want to create a package. These are all the steps you follow. And use one of the example of the Zookeeper package, for example, to explain it. Like, okay, you have to first use this skeleton, and this is the deploy phase, and the deploy phase is launch when you first time you deploy your framework. And then now that you have a basic framework, you probably want to be able to update some values. So then you will have an update phase, and this is an example about how to do that. And then perhaps you want to have a new version, and then there will be an upgrade phase. Just like a step-by-step how to create a framework would be really useful, I think.
True.
That's great feedback. I think what we do with getting the inventory after we go over dynamic-crds of all the features that we have, the next logical step is exactly this. Like, now we know what we're dealing with in inventory-wise, and we're writing to all of those bullet points, then explanations, documentations, and that would cover it.
Yeah, the other important thing I would take out of this feedback is that there are just different personas, right? There might be the user operator persona who just wants to deploy something out there, who just want to use it to deploy a Kafka cluster. And then there are the developers who actually want to develop something new, right?
Yeah, I would say also that the thing that so I took an example about someone who was explaining how to deploy Redis cluster on Kubernetes, And if you translate that to a KUDO package, that's very simple. But when you do this first step, which is the step you see in all the examples, you don't really see a lot of power of KUDO, because basically you could just do an apply -f on the YAML definition, and you would also get a Redis cluster deployed, because it's like several pods, like a stateful set, a service, and so on. But whenever you start to go to the second step, which is, now I want to init my cluster, so I need to run a job after that, so that when my cluster is ready, I need to run this command so that the Redis cluster is created. Then, that's really good, because I can go and create an init phase, and in this init phase will be deployed after the other components, and then everything is automated. While the other example that you can find in the web, where like, I need to wait for all my other components to be finished. I don't even know when they are really finished. So I have to go use kubectl get pod. Then I have to do another kubectl command to init that cluster. And I mean, like, and then I think that when you go to the next phase, which is like, I want to change the number of nodes, that will be even more powerful, because then you can reuse a lot of things you already know about your cluster and so on. So, my feedback is that we need to go like deeper in the examples and like the life cycle of an application, but the basic one. And then that will really show the power of KUDO.
Cool. Yeah, agree.
I like the skeleton generator comment as well. I think that'll help facilitate a lot of things. And once we have these ERDs broken out so that it's a specific plan object, adding plans or adding parameters, I think will be simpler as well, because that could just generate a new file with the one parameter that you're looking at.
Yeah, and then even the documentation about how to create a framework would be easier to do with the new schema that is proposed. I agree. Yeah. And like you said, like having a skeleton generator would be amazing. I mean, like when I started to develop long times ago, first time I used really a framework, not only like PHP code, but really a real framework that was Ruby on Rails. And that was really one of the good things with that, is that you could start with just like a skeleton, and you would know how to start. And as I said in the comment about the skeleton, is that if you get that generated for you, then you have kind of a naming convention that comes with it. And then it's easier to read the different packages if everyone starts with the same naming convention.
Denny, would you be willing to open a CAP to at least kick off this discussion and at least like put in like summary, motivation, goals, and we can you can be a deep part of the life cycle on that one.
Yeah, if you just tell me how to do that. Then
Yeah,
I'll do that.
we'll send you the docs in the Slack and it's a PROA and I'd love for you to own that since you made that framework. So
Okay, sounds good.
Cool. Any other questions, comments?
I'm having a lot of requests for the next community meeting to be on EU time, which I guess is part of wrap up, but maybe next week where we do a Europe friendly time.
Plus, we should find the host.
That would have been my next point exactly.
Sorry, Tom, what was your question?
Is that going to be problematic with inviting Google to get dynamics reviewed?
So maybe in 2 weeks then. So maybe we go back to the original time next week, and yeah, I see where you're going, Tom. So maybe we wait on a Europe time.
So should we go back to the time, or should we stay with the current time? That is 10 a.m. Pacific.
For next meeting, still 10 a.m. Pacific, because we want to have Google, and then after that, move it to
European time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Great.
Can who's going to own that in the calendar? And
I can host unless someone else wants to.
Yeah, and the calendar, I updated it for all events already for this time that we had today for 10 a.m. So we would just then do for the 1 and 2 weeks a time change. But that's fine. And so, Jared,
awesome.
You're hosting for the next one on the 18th, right? So
yeah, I'll host, and then Tom, maybe we do the 20-minute update on open caps. We focus entirely on dynamic-crds, and a couple of us take different components of that, and we'll divvy that up in Slack and figure out who owns what for that meeting. And Tom, maybe you own the example framework as far as the presentation goes, and I'll own the motivation and API design. And then Fabi we can figure out other areas for other people to own, but
yeah, let's just discuss it on Slack or
okay. Yep.
Yeah.
Or a mailing list or Discord. Just kidding.
Yeah, okay. Let's discuss it outside this meeting. That's probably it. Okay. Then, otherwise, thank you so much for participating. I believe we got some good action items in terms of like communication, including meetups and documentation, and also just moving dynamic-crds forward. I guess this is going to be a big step, and I'm super excited about that. Cool. Otherwise, yeah, thanks so much for joining, and hopefully see you next week. Same time, and then in 2 weeks, a little bit earlier. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks. I'll post the recording shortly. Bye.